Welcome to Fathom's Expert Series. We chat with advisors, accountants and finance leaders to learn how they're using Fathom to deliver clarity and confidence and help businesses thrive. We're talking processes, top tips and key learnings. Join us for a great conversation. Welcome to episode 9. Today we introduce you to Darren Hull. He's an experienced CFO and chartered accountant. He will step us through his insights and learnings gleaned from moving clients from compliance to advisory work and delivering personalised, tailored services.
I think that's the secret to advisory, right? You've got to find your unique path that allows you to provide value to your clients, but you really get your clients' trust when they can see you're authentic and you can deliver value. There's no doubt about it. If you do compliance and advisory together, it is a good fit. I see advisory as a way of securing the compliance work as well as increasing revenues in the advisory space. I've got some clients who were literally a $1,500 a year annual compliance client who are now spending $8,000 on advisory services a year. We take an approach of pricing reports as sharply as we can so that we can have as many clients as possible receive those reports, because the reports are an opener to the meetings, which is an opener to the advisory work. So we get our return on investment in terms of the advisory work that flows out from those conversations.
Today, we are delighted to be joined by Darren Hull. Darren is a director and chartered accountant at Venture & Hull, an accounting firm based in New Zealand. Darren, it's fantastic to have you on Fathom's Expert Series today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Pleased to be here.
I'm also joined by my colleague, Tom Bilton. Tom is Head of Advisory at Fathom and also a chartered accountant. Welcome, Tom.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you again.
We're excited to have you on the show today because you're doing advisory in a different way than what is typically touted in CFO circles. Firstly, can you tell us a little bit about the Venture & Hull team and about your background? And then we're going to dig into the different way you're servicing your clients.
Yeah, sure. So I guess in terms of my background, I started my career in the commercial sector. So it probably makes me a little bit different in terms of some of the experience practitioners have in the chartered accountancy field. I had 4 years as a commercial manager for a gas utility and then in the publishing industry as well. And then had an opportunity to join the current practice as a partner some 20 years ago now. We're fundamentally a two-partner practice based here in Wanganui on the west coast of the North Island with a team of 11. And I guess in terms of the way our firm works is we have quite a heavy emphasis on, I guess, a bit of a bespoke approach to our clients. So we have a very tailored personal service with our clients.
Cool. And you've, I think, over the past couple of years managed to sort of move from a very focused tax and compliance, not that you never did any business advisory, but there was much more of a, not as much of a focus as there is now. And you've already moved to about 20% of your client base doing this sort of changed work with, we'll call it, and we're going to run through the changes that you've made shortly. Yeah. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that is true, Tom. I've always done business advisory to a certain level, but there's no doubt about it. Probably over the last 5 years, there's been changes in the market in relation to software to deliver advisory services in terms of making it a little bit easier. And I've certainly noticed a fundamental change in the market where a lot more clients now are wanting, and some are demanding, that level of advisory support, not just the ordinary compliance work.
Yeah, so it's not going to stop basically in terms of the shift.
No, not at all. Like our industry, as a lot of industries that have been impacted by technology, is undergoing quite a big change. And whether we like it or not, it's changing, and I can't see it going backwards. You know, to give you an example, when I was trying to push advisory services 10 years ago, first question my clients would ask was, what's that going to cost, Darren? And it was always that cost analysis to the client. Now a client understands some of the wider issues in terms of the benefits of strategic planning, business planning, those type of advisory services. And although cost is always important, it's not their primary driver in wanting those type of services. So they're asking for and demanding those services.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the ones that are not necessarily asking for it, you also have this quite interesting methodology around being able to help them understand your value and then go on that journey in a more bite-sized way that we're gonna delve into today.
So Darren, you were saying you attended a CFO summit the other day where you often hear how advisory services are set up as a transaction with structured tiers. Why are you guys taking a different approach to that?
So I guess there's a few reasons for that. I mean, it's fundamentally the way we've structured our business, as I mentioned, is around a more personalised service to clients. So that's one of the reasons, is the way we work with our clients anyway. But I guess also, if I'm honest, it's partly a personal attitude towards advisory services, that we just don't see it as a commodity or a product. I think advisory is more about a trusted relationship with a client that really values your ability to assist them to run their business better. So that's a primary reason for me. Then we get to some realities right around, client requirements vary hugely from client to client. So if you take a small SME, there might just be them as the business owner. They might have 4 staff. Another client who has branches all around the country has their own business manager who they employ to assist with the business as well. So obviously their requirements and demands vary greatly. So the natural response to that is, well, yeah, you just tier your advisory services at different levels to appeal to those different clients, and that's true to a degree. But I think, from my perspective, one of the big troubles with fixed fee advisory product selling, if you like, is there's a couple of realities relating to advisory work that I think people need to understand. And from my experience, I've grown to appreciate this more as time's gone by. And that is, you are heavily reliant on client capabilities in terms of their understanding what their capabilities are in terms of taking the business forward. And the other part of it is also their desire to take the business forward. Some owners just aren't as committed about their business. They're quite happy in their role. They don't want a lot of extra stress, and they're only actually looking for marginal improvement to their business, not a big change. So that comes back to that required approach, I think, where you have to understand the client, vary your approach to the client. So if you don't have fixed fees, the conversation then comes around, what does that particular client need? What way can you help that particular client? That's what they pay for. So it almost gives the client control over the process to a certain degree. But ultimately, what I've found is when you focus that way and you earn the client's trust, they gain an understanding of the value that you can provide to their business. And when they think about you, they think, how can Darren help me? And they ask for your help. Not the example I gave you earlier on where they say, well, Darren, how much is it going to cost? Money actually, or the fee price, almost doesn't even enter the conversation because they have a need, they know you can assist them, and so they request your help.
I love the Venture and Hull approach. You say it's about integrity and trust. And I like this line that you've got on your website. Accounting solutions are not just enough. We offer business solutions and ideas to make businesses successful. So when you're packaging up ideas, you really don't know what you're going to deliver to the client. So it leaves room to figure out what suits their goals and their needs.
Correct, which comes back to what I was discussing before about all clients being different and needing different things, and so referring back to that fixed fee issue again, a lot of those fixed fees rely on the client using you. What you're inviting is an analysis by the client every month around, did I get my value from Darren this month? Did I get my $2,000, $3,000 worth that month? That's where their focus is. It's not around, I had a need, we wanted to improve the business this way, Darren assisted, and here's what we achieved, and we made some progress.
Cool. So do you want to, step us through the process that you've finessed over the past couple of years that is really working for you at the moment? I think you've sort of summarized it into a 3-step process.
Yeah, Tom, just prefacing this discussion really around the challenge that a lot of firms, including ours, were working with clients for many years, fundamentally in compliance. All of a sudden, we're trying to say to the client, we're business advisors, we can help you with your business in this way. Understandable that a client says, oh, what really? But I've been working with you for the last 6 years. You've never really pushed this. I haven't seen you market it. And so there's that element of uncertainty from the client around whether you can help them in the way you say you can, which is another reason why I don't like fixed fees. Keep on harping back to that. But, that's a big leap for a client who's been getting compliance services to all of a sudden trust you and start paying you a fixed fee per month. So in terms of the process we took, understanding of that's where the background was, it was really derived around a process which was trying to communicate financially to a client on a regular basis. That then providing the opportunity to meet more regularly with the client, so you can get in front of the client to discuss their businesses and get a better understanding about the business. And then once you have that understanding and that regular contact, it's then another jump to start talking about annual planning, strategic planning, and other sort of advisory services that you might be able to deliver.
So Darren, you're getting in front of your client, you're giving them some value by way of a report, and then you're slowly building the conversation and the understanding with the client to open that door to advisory. Can you tell us what that actually practically looks like for you?
Yeah, so Karen, that really is a process that actually takes a bit of time, right? So Tom, I think, referenced the last couple of years. To be honest, it's been a 5-6 year journey with that process. So we started off simply at the start in the sense that a lot of clients we prepared GST returns for. So what we decided to do is, rather than just provide them with the GST return, because we have the data, we'd also provide them with a bi-monthly or monthly cash flow report as well for the client. That went with their GST return, but actually the report was focused around the cash flow first, and the GST return was supplementary to that. So they were getting some sort of regular financial report, giving them some information during the financial year about how their business was actually trading. So that was sort of the first step. Once that was in place and we were reporting actual results to the client, the next obvious step was to say, well, okay, it's good business practice anyway. How about we get together, have a chat about the budget when we got to the next financial year? So we've actually got a bit of a budget to work to for the next financial year. Benefits to you as you get a better understanding of your cash flow, how much drawings you might expect to get from the business during the year, what do you need for capital investment, et cetera, et cetera. Establish a budget with the client, and then during that process, you obviously learn more about the business as you step through that budgeting process. Then during the next year, we were able to report actuals to budget to the client with variances. Client starts to get used to seeing that. They're starting to get some feedback on their business performance. And once we had a budget, it was then a lot easier to say to the client, look, why don't we just catch up every 3 months, have a chat about how you're performing to the budget. And that was the driver for the meeting. But of course, once you met with the client, you're able to open up discussion a bit wider about how the business was performing and what other issues might be happening in the budget. That sort of created that regular contact away from compliance work where maybe you're only meeting the client once a year when you completed your annual financial statements and your tax returns. So it's about creating those contact points to give the opportunity to have further discussion, try and get further advisory work. Although when I say get further advisory work, what I actually mean, I genuinely mean this, how can we help the client? Because the advisory work is going to flow from you being able to help the client grow their business. So we get to the budget, and then the following year, we're getting together to talk about the budget anyway. And we've talked about the business during the year, how it's going, what sort of issues crop up, and there might be some particular issues that we can talk to help with during the year. But then it's a logical step when we're doing the next budget to say, well, not just financially, what are you planning for this year? Because quite obviously what the business is planning to do impacts the budget, right? Have you got any capital expenditure? Are you wanting to market specifically some of your products? Are you wanting to break into a new market? Those things take not only strategy, but they require an investment of time and dollars as well. So you really start to talk about the business and what the goals of the business are moving forward and start to project forward rather than talking about historical financial information. Once the client's comfortable with that, it's easier to have a conversation about, well, look, we're thinking about what we're doing for the year ahead, but actually we really should have a better idea where you're wanting to take the business 5 years down the track, because annual planning really is all about taking a step in that year to get you closer to your goals, right? Well, what are your goals? And a lot of clients will say, well, I sort of know what I want to do with the business. Why do we have to get so formal with doing a strategic plan, for example? And the simple answer is, well, and I liken this example, so look, if you're a ship and you're out at sea and you want to get to a location, if you want to go to a location over here or you want to go to a location here, first of all, it's a different direction. But more importantly, the strategies that you're required to implement to get you to your destination can vary greatly. If you have a business who, let's say, says, I want to be quite aggressive, I want to grow my revenues by 20% and grow my profitability over the next 5 years. Well, there are acquisition growth strategies. If you have a client who says, actually, money's not a big factor for me, my business makes a really good profit, My priorities are around freeing up time in the business. I want more time, not as much pressure in the business. Well, the business strategies to achieve that obviously are hugely different to the strategies around growing growth. So if we don't know where we want to end up, we're not going to focus on the appropriate strategies to get there. We're not going to get there as quick as much. And perhaps arguably more important, you're not going to have the client's commitment because you're going to pursue a strategy that they don't actually want necessarily to get to. They're not invested in it. Therefore, they're not going to invest the time and energy required in the strategies to reach their goals. And so I have quite honest conversations and challenge clients around what it is they want to do with their business. Because if they're not honest with themselves about what that is, we can waste a whole lot of time.
Are most of them desperate to share with you where they want to go? Is that something that they're always thinking about and wrangling with? Or is it a slow extraction process like you're describing?
It can be a slow extraction process. Yeah. You know what? I guess it may not sound shocking, but a lot of business owners, because they're so caught up day to day operationally, they don't stop and think about where they want to go. They get out of bed, they go to work, they deal with the next fire. They sort of have a general idea about what they want to achieve, but they get so caught up in the operational aspects that they don't spend the time or energy or resource on achieving their goals. And that's the value advisory work, right? And annual planning and strategic planning is to try to get clients to understand, hey, if you plan, organize yourself, get the right support and resource, think about where it is you want to go, you're going to achieve a lot more at the end of the day than you would otherwise.
That phrase, that word, I once heard mnemonic, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but opera, only planning ensures results are achieved. So yeah. It's amazing to me that so many businesses don't even have a budget, or if they do, they don't check their progress or work out why steer the ship, realign the ship, or change where the sales are, etc. So
correct.
Yeah.
So in relation to your question, Karen, is that a bit of a job to get clients to articulate where they'd like to go? For a lot of clients, yes. Some clients, as you would expect, are very focused. They have a very clear understanding what they want to achieve and they want to go. And you get that whole gambit down to those clients who haven't spent a lot of time thinking about it. And that's where the planning side comes in.
Yeah.
As Tom was saying, is the budget the clincher? Is that the best way to hook your existing clients and move them into this space?
It's one of the important ways, because our goal primarily is to have more time with our clients. And clients are not, clients may be open to, hi, it's Darren, I'm calling to see whether we can have a catch up. But I think when there's purpose around a meeting, you have a higher chance of success of getting a client to engage with you, right? And so the budget was just an easy way for those clients who are only used to compliance services to start giving them information about the business and have that reason to meet with the client, Karen.
So Darren, you're describing moving your existing clients into this space. How does it work with new clients that you onboard?
So new clients, quite a different process. So because we do a lot more advisory work, they're obviously the type of clients we would like. So the conversation with a new client is completely different. It's around the advisory work we do and the expectation that if you want to run a good business, these are the good business disciplines you should have in place. You should know where you want to go longer term with your business. You should be planning annually. You should be reporting regularly. We should be meeting regularly. You need someone to keep you accountable for progress and to assist you with that progress. So we position that to a new client on that basis. And clients obviously respond really well to that. We'll go see the client on a complimentary basis just to purely get a better understanding of the client, what it is they want to achieve with their business and where they want to go at a high level, and talk about how we can help them in more detail to achieve that. But they're pretty much coming on board with that mindset of, yeah, this is the way we want to work. And if they're looking for advisory services, they're already more than halfway there in terms of wanting that sort of service level, Karen. So a different approach and different issues compared to clients who've been used to getting compliance services for a long period of time.
I love in your approach, you've talked about building trust and confidence over time and how that kind of snowballs as you're getting in front of the client. So that's a key part of the strategy. Another part of your strategy is how you provide value to the client and then how you showcase your skills. Can you step us through how that works and your experience there?
I can pass on my experience. So when I'm meeting with a client, I generally wear a hat that looks at their business as though it's mine. So when they have issues in the business, my mind automatically turns to, well, what would I do? If this was my business and this was my issue, what would I do? So what I would do will depend a lot on obviously on what the issue is and where the business needs to go. But I think a key point with advisory work, and this is the challenge, I get that for a lot of advisors, is telling a client what they need to do is obviously a skill set, but actually where clients really struggle is the how to do it. And I think that's where you can really provide some value to clients. They want someone to hold their hand and to lead them through that process and to give them confidence, first of all, that the process is the right way to do it. So the doing part or assisting the doing is really important. That doesn't mean you need to be an expert on everything, obviously. Plenty of things I don't know. You partner up with those at appropriate times for those, and clients love having a team around them. And I view myself as just one member of a team that circles around the client and helps them achieve their goals. So if there's any specialist areas where skills are required for marketing, or working with a couple of clients now where we're using external marketing consultants with specialist marketing knowledge because of the goals we want to achieve, we work together as a group to achieve those objectives. In relation to building trust and assisting clients, that is the slower part of the journey. And my approach has been to listen carefully to the client. We might think we know what that business needs, but again, if it doesn't tie up and line up with what the client is after, you've got to run into some issues. And so part of the trick, I think, is get an understanding of what's important to the client and focusing on those things that get the client excited about their business and moving forward as well, because then they have that commitment to try and address that issue.
Yeah, that's a really good point you raised. We're going to dig into some of the reports, real life reports you use for clients, obviously de-identified for our session today. It must be amazing when a client of yours sees their business in beautiful graphs and pie charts and all the levers or all the elements of their business and able to track metrics against specific parts. Tell us how you engage your client and talk through all the possibilities.
Right, yeah. Kieran, it'd be quite nice to make the point up front before we look at the reports, what you started on, which is the graphical presentation, because that is a feature of Fathom, how well clients have responded, because it's broken down walls in relation to talking about the financial aspect of the business, which I think is quite important. One of the big advantages we've found with the Fathom reporting and the feedback we've had from our clients is just how much they love the graphical representation of financial data. So you could talk to pretty much any chartered accountant and ask them how well do their clients understand their financial statements, and not being critical of clients. And as you'd expect, a lot of clients don't have a deep understanding of financials. And I'm sure many chartered accountant can recall client meetings where, as we're going through compliance financial statements, the client's eyes are literally glazing over as we talk through this stuff. So the beauty of a product like Fathom is to take that financial information that we understand and deal with every day too, which is the other hurdle, right? We think it's quite simple. We deal with the stuff every day. A client doesn't. So all of a sudden the client sees this graphical information. It's easy to comprehend. It's easy to spot trends. And the feedback we've had from clients since we've introduced Fathom is really been quite fantastic. They love the reports. And it's done a couple of important things. Mostly, it's improved the engagement with the client. So whereas before we'd talk about the financial information, they would tend to listen, might ask a few questions. The graphical presentation of the data gets the client really curious about the data and the graphs and the presentation. So they start asking questions or want to know more, or could we do this? Or actually, if we could report this way, that would be really great. So it just opens up that engagement with the client in a way that traditional financial reporting doesn't.
Mm. And what is it about Fathom? Is it the aesthetics? Why not just create reports in Power BI or Excel or even another system? Because I think you tested a few, right?
Yeah, we did. We had a look at a few systems. So because we deal with the SME market, it was really, really important to us that we could deliver the reports quickly so that we could price the reports at a level that were affordable to small SME clients. We don't view the reporting as a fee generator in itself. We obviously recover our fees for the reports and the software subscription, but we do take an approach of pricing those reports as sharply as we can, so that we can have as many clients as possible receive those reports, because the reports are an opener to the meetings, which is an opener to the advisory work. So we get our return on investment, if you like, in terms of the advisory work that flows out from those conversations.
So moving away from that concept of, more providing another commodity service, which is, like getting out of that mindset. It's really an investment in some respects of time and energy, not a huge return, but the huge return is later down the line through the relationship build, the trust, etc., being built. And then
yeah, absolutely. And I think the trick is to focus on how's this report going to add value to this client. So, Fathom comes with a lot of standard reports. We've created our own standard reports, but that's as a starting point. You've still got to look at the client individually, understand what are the drivers that are in their business, understand what data the client might want to see, understand what data you want to see, so you get a better understanding of what's driving the business. And that varies greatly by client as well.
Yeah. And another expert series that's also released is with David Marr, and he talks a lot about the importance of the economic drivers of the business. So a little plug for that.
Absolutely. And in relation to reporting, I think the other point I would make is, again, just my viewpoint and experience is, when you introduce something new, like with Fathom, it's great. It's new, clients like it, they're excited about it. But 6 months later, it's the same report it was 6 months ago. So that freshness and newness tends to go, as it should do. It comes down to, what are you presenting to the client? What's the value of the information you're presenting to the client? But more importantly, what are you talking to the client about? So it's no good producing a report, sending it off to the client, and that's all you do. I'll always review the report for the client each month, or whatever period we're producing it for. You review the file to try and identify the issues you should be talking to your client about that they need to know. So it's that drilling down into the performance of the business and the subsequent conversations with the client that are important.
Yeah, and we've discussed this before, as you mentioned. Clients don't understand finance. Some will, but you provide almost like an executive summary at the front end of the report, really, which
Correct.
is your condensement of the key issues. And of course, they're going to read that. It's short and punchy, etc.
Correct. So we find Fathom so good in terms of the speed of preparation I mentioned before, also in terms of the ability to modify reporting particular to a client. Its KPI reporting is fantastic. It comes with a whole lot of set KPIs, but you can literally report on any KPI you want to create for a client, which gives us a huge range of flexibility in terms of reporting to a client. So that's really, really important to us as well. Because the Fathom reports work really well for us, clients understand them really well, we don't present the Xero financial reports to clients. Now the Fathom report is the main report, which has the executive summary, has all the relevant reporting, still has a P&L and a summary balance sheet and all the key financial information that a client would like, but they don't get the set of financial statements. Now, in saying that, we make sure the client is acutely aware that in order to produce the Fathom reporting, we need to prepare the financial statements. And we have some clients we're charging, obviously, a monthly fee to prepare financial statements. And so it's important the client still understands that accounting work still needs to happen to produce the report at the end of the process.
Yeah, and what I found fascinating when we first chatted, and I do see a number of firms do this, but it was wonderful to hear from you, was that you don't send any Xero reports. It's all in Fathom now, right? All the reporting.
Correct.
Fathom. Yeah.
Yeah. The Fathom report, we take the approach, it's like a summary report. So as a business owner, here's the highlights you need to know about your business to keep your finger on the pulse, and rely on us highlighting anything you should be aware of or that we need to talk about.
Yeah. I just want to go back during your assessment phase. Were those the things? Was there anything else that came up around the speed of use or maybe learning?
Look, speed, presentation of data in the sense that it looks nice to a client is understandable. They can comprehend it. And the flexibility in terms of being able to report KPIs, they were the three biggest factors. But of all of those, if we couldn't get past the first hurdle, which was being able to compile the reports very quickly, i.e. cost effectively to the client, that would have been a big blow to us, because when we started back reporting actuals to budget, now to zero, we can do that quite quickly, but we want to widen the reporting through to the client via the way Fathom allows us to do. So speed was quite essential, Tom, absolutely, because, you know, I think there's a misconception with small SMEs that they're a small market. You know, I've got some clients who were literally a $1,500 a year annual compliance client who are now spending $8,000 on advisory services a year. So there's a misconception that even small business owners, there's a limit to what they're interested in. If I'd gone to those clients and tried to sell advisory services $8,000 a year, never would have happened in a million years. This has happened over 3, 4, 5 years as we've had those conversations, seen what I can do, started to rely on me more. And when you think about it, actually, there's a gap for those small SMEs because they don't have the resources to employ staff with that expertise within their business. So use of consultants or business advisors is an obvious solution to that, but it makes sense for them to work with someone who understands their numbers, understands their business, and those two aspects are coordinated or integrated.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing, isn't it? The value that a small business can get for $700 a month. If you break that down to a monthly cost, they're getting all this expertise on their tax and their compliance, and they're getting all this business advice as well, which is quite transformational.
Correct. And it doesn't seem, well, they're paying the fee, obviously, but at the end of the day, the client doesn't see the $700. What the client sees is, I get a financial report from Darren summarising my business every month. I meet with Darren every month. We meet for a couple of hours or an hour and a half, whatever it might be. We talk about the business. We review our annual plan objectives, and we set our action plan for the next month. That gets reported back to me. I'm made accountable. Darren's doing some of those actions, and then we go from there. So that's the value they look at.
And the business improves. The output.
And the business improves, or else they wouldn't be using you. That's right.
So, yeah.
And I love how some advisors say that's their favorite part of the month, where they get to sit with the client and go over the numbers in a beautiful
hugely
report.
rewarding. Oh, look, I love it.
Yeah.
So much so it doesn't seem like work sometimes, in the sense that, you know, that it's so enjoyable, and it's such a pleasure to see business owners who are interested in improving their business and are passionate about their own business.
I love part of your strategy in terms of showing value over time is also collaborating with the client to then customize that templated report that you have.
Yeah, correct. So when we introduced Fathom, we obviously gave thought to what we believed as a template would work well for the majority of our clients. And we designed some templates both around our annual reporting to our clients and also around our regular monthly and periodic clients. But that was just the starting point. There's no doubt about it. The first 6 months involved presenting the data to the client, the report, talking through it, and talking through the ideas for the client. So I had tweaked some reports particular to the client up front, knowing the client and what they might like. But certainly the process was all about discussing that with the client, finding out from them what they would like to see on a monthly basis, because some clients just like to see certain numbers, and so that's fine, maybe not important to me, but it's important to the client, so we can include those. And over a period of time, we'd tweak the report, and land at a place where we believe the report was giving the client the required data they wanted. Sometimes we identified relation to KPIs, which is an area I focus on quite heavily because the ability that Fathom gives us to report on non-financial data for the business. So there's a lot of discussions there around, you know, what sort of data ideally would we like? We know we want this data. Can we actually produce this data to report on it? And KPI reporting is always a balance between the value of the data you're getting versus the effort to get the data, right? And sometimes you've just got to hold your hand up and go, it's just too difficult, too time consuming. We're going to give that a miss and we won't report on that. Other times it's, yes, we've got the data, we just need to collate it. Or we haven't got the data, but very easy to introduce a system which will start to collate that data, and then we can start reporting on it. And that too was a bit of an ongoing process. And then the next cycle, when we come to annual planning, a lot more in-depth discussion about, okay, what sort of KPIs and drivers should we be reporting on a regular basis for the business.
And it's awesome if you've got a stack of non-financial KPIs. They obviously have to come from the client, so they're involved in producing the report essentially. So they're getting ownership over overseeing those metrics in a bit of a report every month, aren't they?
They do. For a lot of the internal KPIs, the client has to collate the data. Some clients give us access to systems or to reports for us to collate the data, but often the client will collate it. And the beauty of Fathom is that the import of data for KPIs is in a simple spreadsheet format. So a lot of clients who have that KPI spreadsheet, and their job at the end of the month is to populate the data for the agreed KPIs we want to report on, fire the spreadsheet back to us, we import it, and then we report on the KPIs. So it's a nice clean process.
There's also that option of using, I don't know what your view is on this one, but using Google Sheets as well, which means you've got that absolute reliance of this live document that you can show the client the report as well and hold them accountable. You say, well, this number's missing because you didn't enter the data. So, because data sometimes can be a struggle with clients. So pushing
it can be, but I think, Tom, that comes back to the discussions up front. Once the client understands why you want the data and is happy that the process required to get the data is reasonable and understand the value from getting the data, then they're committed to getting the data.
Yeah.
If the client's not committed to the KPI, if I'm telling them you need to report on all these things and the client's sitting there going, yeah, I can't quite see the value on that, or I've got to have one of my staff spend 15 minutes each month to collate the data. What do you think is going to happen inevitably? They'll provide it for the first couple of months and they didn't get around to it. Then I'm bugging them to get the data and then you just don't get it and then you stop reporting it.
Yeah. So those are those clients that aren't quite as enthusiastic about things as they should be.
Correct. But also it could just be that they don't understand the value of the KPI to the business. And that's why those discussions up front about what KPIs should we be reporting? Why should we be reporting them? And I have clients who will literally say, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
And so we'll talk about why it's important to report on KPIs and the value that comes from that.
Darren, tell me about why you believe KPIs are so important to clients and the requirement to show them, I guess, in a visual format and report on them.
Yeah, I think KPIs are really, really important, Tom, for a few reasons. So primarily, they obviously enable a better understanding of the client's business. Now, this is data behind the business, non-financial. That is key. So when you understand what the key drivers are for the business in terms of what produces its revenue, if it's a service business, it's how productive staff are, how efficient they are, comes back to charge rates, those types of issues. So if you are reporting that data, you're seeing it, you start to build up a better understanding of your client's business and how it performs. And I might add, so does the client. It's not just a one-way thing for the advisor. It's improves the client's understanding of their own business as well. A key advantage is just that ability to spot trends, particularly negative ones that are happening early, and to do something early. It's no good getting 12 months later and seeing the results after 12 months, and we do a bit of work and we find out that one of the revenue lines has really dropped off markedly. It's been buried in the headline number because the client's total revenue might have stayed the same. When you dig down, one of their revenue lines is growing aggressively and one of these has declined aggressively. Now, a business owner might say, yeah, no, I didn't think that was going very well, but they're often surprised about the magnitude of the drop. And so the graphical information not only tells you that there's a trend, it gives you a good indication about the severity of the trend. Is the drop off dramatic? Or is it minor? Is it a minor trend, but it's persistent? So, a minor trend downward, we wait till it's a bit of a longer period, but if it's going down for six months, it's indicative of perhaps a bigger issue. It might be a short-term trend, but it's very aggressive, a sudden drop-off. So that graphical reporting gives us that ability to identify those things and start having the conversations around what's causing them, which is the next advantage of them. So it's really important for that. End of the day, before you can talk to the client about potential solutions, you've got to define what the problem is, right? Yeah. You can't make assumptions. You can't just run off and go, well, it could be this, it could be that. That's right. You need to eliminate what might be contributing to the issue. And often we can get some good clues from the right type of data that's been reported too. And I think the other big advantage of KPIs, and we certainly use this, is a measurement of success. So I've got a couple of clients where we're trying aggressively to break and grow their commercial share of the market. And we've got marketing initiatives and some other direct marketing initiatives that we're using to assist with that. So reporting down at that level, if we have those reporting systems in place, puts us in an ideal position to be able to monitor how successful those initiatives are. You might have a new product line you think the market wants. You can do all the right marketing, but maybe you just can't gain some traction. If you're reporting that data, you've got some sort of direct feedback of how successful you've been with your approaches.
Yeah, right.
I've got a question for you on KPIs, Darren. What's a typical universal KPI that is good to measure for all clients? And then what is an unusual one that you found is a bit of a game changer for one of your clients?
I would say, as a given, you should be trying to drill down and report on different service lines, service revenues, as much as you can, because the better understanding of where your total revenue comes from, the better. And a lot of clients will have some sort of system that enables them to break their revenues down. We're not replicating systems, remember, we're just summarizing the results. So someone may have a system outside of their financial system that tracks all their sales. They may have a whole lot of data they can get from that system, but they should be able to extract the totals for the month. Then it's a simple data entry into Fathom and importing into and being able to report on it. So getting a good understanding of all your revenue breakdowns, use 12-month rolling average graphs for sure. They give you a much better idea of what the trend is. In relation to unusual KPIs, that's interesting. I've got a service client who has a mixture of servicing the client when they see them in appointments and also selling products. So we've broken the revenues down and got good data for each staff member, not just client numbers or client consults, but also breaking their revenues generated down into their personal time and product sales as well. They've all got to relate back to that particular business, right? And trying to give the owner some insight as to what's driving the headline number.
A key question would be, though, how do you recoup your fees? So what does your fee structure look like?
Yes, our fee structure is really simple. We just charge on time. We do have some variable rates depending on the level of service, but fundamentally, advisory time is charged on an as-used basis. And per my opening sort of comments versus flat fee, my experience has been that the conversation's not normally around the fees. It's around the value that you add. We do break down on our billing, I should add, the advisory time. So we're quite transparent with clients. So their invoice will detail all the time and what's being done on their behalf with that advisory time as well. So we don't just send them a summary bill for advisory services for the month. We're quite transparent about where and why we've charged them for our time.
So Darren, Venture and Hull are really focused on personalised communication and engagement with the clients. Can you briefly snapshot for us how you meet with the client to deliver the report and deliver the analysis that you've prepared?
So obviously, ideally, it's good to get together with the client and discuss issues. So that's the main method of communicating with clients. Out-of-town clients will often, obviously, Teams or Skype or whatever is appropriate as well. But I do make a bit of an effort for smaller SMEs that I might only be seeing them once a year or every quarter or 2 times a year. So rather than just firing out an email with the Fathom report, I use Loom, which I love. Often I'll record a session where I'll just quickly go over the report, highlight a couple of issues in the report of interest to the client and myself, and deliver that verbally. No more than 2 minutes, 3 minutes commentary on the email. But the feedback from clients has been great, very personal. They know that I've reviewed their financials and I'm got my finger on the pulse, if you like. But that is balanced by being aware that I don't want that to be relied on by a client. So you got to use it a little bit carefully in terms of seeing the client as still the best outcome and best result.
And what percentage of clients do you meet with monthly and what percentage annually?
By and far, most of my clients I will meet over a 1 month or 2 month or 3 month cycle is the most common. It's the smaller SMEs that I might meet twice a year, do the budget, do some annual planning, and maybe catch up 6 months later. But the majority are 1 month, 2 month, or quarterly. You've got to be realistic with the client. And so again, the cycle isn't always in my hands. The cycle is often defined by the needs of the client and their capabilities. And another aspect, this is where fixed fee, I think, doesn't work well. If clients are tied up and they can't do the work, they're paying a bill, they exit out. You've lost them as an advisory client. They go somewhere else. I've got the ability to recognize that a client's struggling because they're really, really busy, ratchet back the advisory to a level that they can accommodate and commit to. And then once they've got more time available, we can ratchet up the meetings again and meet on a more frequent basis. So a key part is picking a meeting cycle, accountability cycle that fits in with their availability and their capabilities for us to progress the strategic issues that we're working on.
Yeah, it's really great to tailor the cadence to fit how their lives are running.
You have to, Karen. Yeah, you absolutely have to, or else it just comes unstuck after a period of time.
Yeah, that's excellent. It's great insight. Why Fathom over everything else, Darren?
It's a couple of things I mentioned before. It's just the ease of use, the presentation style to clients in a way that they understand, and the flexibility that Fathom gives in relation to use of KPIs. And I might add, and you've touched on it in your other expert series, you've got your analysis tools as well, where you can sit in a client with a meeting and look at what ifs with the business. And you've also got cash flow forecasting capability with the product. So I think it's a value for ad product, absolutely, that is great and underpinning any advisory practice. And I'm not just saying that as a sell, that's been my experience with it, and I love the product.
So Darren, coming up to the end of this part of the expert series, just wanted to ask, what are you most excited about in the accounting advisory industry at the moment, the business advice industry?
That is growing. I mean, I've been waiting a long time personally for the market to be at a point where clients are wanting and expecting advisory work. So, it's a huge opportunity for those practices who do advisory work. It's what excites me, and I love working with clients who are excited about their own business. So, I see a lot of growth potential there in the market as a whole, which is of benefit to all firms who are in the advisory market, because we're all going to gain from clients' expectations effectively going up and clients demanding more from those who are advising them with their business. They will price compete, I believe, for compliance work more as time goes on. And I think it's going to be crucial for firms to move in the advisory space that provides a bit of glue to the compliance work that we have, because there's no doubt about it. If you do compliance and advisory together, it is a good fit. And so I actually see advisory as a way of securing, funnily enough, the compliance work that we have, as well as increasing revenues in the advisory space.
Darren, 2 more questions to round out. What's your best learning in this whole process of you moving into this advisory space?
A couple of things I guess really stand out. One is you have to be patient, and it is about building trust. And once you build trust through demonstrating value, then the work can actually come quite quickly. And once you become your client's trusted advisor, and I'm not into lingo, virtual CFO, look, we're advisors, and we're an advisor at different levels to different size businesses. I don't get too caught up in labeling all of that. What we want to hopefully achieve is that when the client's got some key business issue, they think of me and they're contacting me when they want to talk about it to try and resolve it. That's my objective. I think the other key learning over time, and there has been some lessons over time, is clients do have different capabilities. And so you can't push a client harder and faster than what they're capable of going. And sometimes clients don't understand what their capabilities are or how far they can go. So, if you push a client too hard, all that's going to happen is next time you meet with them, they won't have achieved the action points that you had. They'll go away, they'll come back, they still won't achieve it. And in the end, they will go, this isn't working, and rather admit they don't have the time or the energy or the interest in pursuing these issues, they just stop seeing you, right? So, you have to marry what you would like to do for their business and the opportunities that you see for their business. You need to marry that with the owner's capabilities and their interest in taking their business forward. And there are times with clients where I think some clients have missed some opportunities that are there for them, but the reality is they are just not committed to uptaking those opportunities. I have to accept that. It's their business and work with them to achieve the things they want to achieve with their business.
That's awesome. The CFO bedside manner, you kind of need to be sensitive to where your client's at. But also I love that point of their potential too. There's a question we love finishing our interviews with, Darren. It's this one. What is something that CFOs should be talking more about that they don't talk about enough?
I think you've got to put yourself out there a little bit, and you've got to put yourself a little bit of a limb and get involved. We can't sit back as advisors and understand the value of budgeting and annual planning and strategic planning and not be proactive in trying to get our clients to understand the values of those things. Not in a selling way, that's my initial point, not trying to sell a service. We're trying to get the client to understand the value behind a process that will improve the performance of their business. And so we need to keep working at that. And sometimes you need to take the lead. When we introduced Fathom and we did the initial reports, I just sent them out to clients. I don't ring them to say, hey, we've got a new reporting system. We think you'll love this report. It's going to provide you with value. I made that decision that it was going to provide value for them. We sent them out. And then I followed up with the client, had those conversations, and we went from there. So, you know, if you believe in certain things, you need to integrate them in terms of your approach with your clients and not make them optional. There's always going to be some clients who don't want to engage, but you need to be progressing implementation of those things if you believe it adds that sort of value to your client. It's great to get bits of different people's experience, and everyone's journey is different because we're different as people, right? How I approach people is completely different to somebody else, and that plays a part in the way you approach clients and the way you interact with them and the way you help them. So, you know, I think that's the secret to advisory, right? You've got to find your unique path that allows you to one, provide value to your clients, but you get their trust. You really get your clients' trust when they can see you're authentic and you can deliver value. And you're authentic by being who you are and believing in what you're doing.
That's awesome, Darren. Thank you very much, Darren.
Great. No problem at all. All right. Thanks, guys.
Find out how other advisors fathom it for clarity and confidence.